once I got into leadership in the business world, I knew that if I was going to be successful, I had to go all in on learning and evolving, and that things change. And so I became a big reader. I got mentors, coaches, and it's been a journey ever since.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hirsch Rephun, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. My guest today on Truth Tastes Funny is Damon Lembi. Damon's a two-time best-selling author. He's the host of the Learnit podcast, which I love because, as we'll talk about today, you can be a know-it-all or you can be a learn-it-all. He's the CEO of Learnit, and that's a live learning platform that's upskilled more than 2 million people. He was in his previous career, he was a baseball player, and he brings that athlete's perspective to leadership. And through his journey, he's gained invaluable insights into what helps organizations grow and great leaders learn, and why the Learn It All companies outpace their competitors every time. Damon, welcome to Truth Tastes Funny.
Hirsch, it's great to be here. I'm honored, so I'm looking forward to our conversation.
It's wonderful to have you. We were talking off air about the willingness to learn, the willingness to change and evolve. First of all, what inspired you to dedicate yourself to knowledge? Let's call it that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. If you asked me when I was 16 years old or even 22, never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine I would end up spending 30 years at a learning and development organization. If you asked me back then, I was going to be a Major League Baseball player, and I went all in on that. At Arizona State, where I went to school, I wasn't a very good student, but here I am. And I think now it's really, once I got into leadership in the business world, I knew that if I was going to be successful, I had to go all in on learning and evolving, and that things change. And so I became a big reader. I got mentors, coaches, and it's been a journey ever since.
Well, the interesting thing is if you were into sports, particularly baseball, you must have been coachable. You must have been someone who was willing to listen, and that really is learning. When you're coachable, when you're willing to hear somebody else's point of view, that's following somebody else's vision, or but a lot of people don't want to do that. Those are the same people that typically are not super curious. They're not super curious about stuff. Tell me a little bit about the baseball career and what happened there.
You bring up a really good point. Yes, I think some of the best athletes are coachable. You take even guys like Michael Jordan, who throughout their career, they always had coaches and mentors and people that they could turn to. And so absolutely, the best athletes are coachable. And a lot of athletes make great employees, great sales reps and everything. So the short version of my baseball story is I went all in baseball when I was about a sophomore in high school. I knew that if I was going to play college or pro, I had a better chance at baseball than I did at football and basketball. It turned out pretty well for me. I was a high school All-American, got drafted by the Atlanta Braves in the 13th round, and but I ended up going the college route, and it was a great leadership lesson for me because the coach at Pepperdine, where I had a full ride, Pepperdine's a small 2,500 person school. He sat me down and said, if you come to Pepperdine, we're going to win the World Series with or without you in the next couple of years. And he had this moonshot goal. And a lot of people would think, well, Pepperdine, how are they going to go up against LSU and Texas and all these big schools? Long story short, I got to Pepperdine because I believed in his vision, suffered the imposter syndrome. I really didn't know if I belonged, and got hurt, left. And Hirsch, the year I left, they won the College World Series. Good for them. I was happy for them. Ended up at Arizona State, gave it everything I got, hit a home run in the College World Series, which is kind of like my wife would say my my glory days moment. And at 22, I was waiting for my phone call to get drafted again. Uh, didn't happen for one reason or another. And so here I was, 22 years old, thinking to myself, well, what am I supposed to do? My identity was as a baseball player.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was at a, crossroads, so to speak, in my life at that point.
Well, this is interesting because we hear about plan B. You should have a plan B. Athletes, studying business and do and that's obviously evolved over the last couple of decades where and it could be any kind of business, but they're much more entrepreneurial than they used to be. And it seems to be built in like to their mindset, but it hasn't always been that way. Did that have an influence on your desire to help people upskill?
So now they have the NIL, which is where the athletes are getting paid. So I
Yes,
think they're
yeah.
getting a lot more business knowledge and strategy. But think about it. When you're an 18-year-old kid, you're not thinking about what you're going to do the rest of your life. You're thinking about playing in the big leagues. Um, for me, I was just kind of like, well, what am I going to do? I don't have any particular business skills. I've never had a job. But what I didn't realize at the time, what I did have was an athletic education. And I learned everything I learned from sports helped really model my leadership over those 30 years. And that's, from discipline, collaboration, teamwork, perseverance. And that's really what I've used to develop into becoming a leader at Learnit. I started off as a receptionist. I kind of worked my way up, taught classes, did sales, and I've led Learnit for the last 20, 25 plus years.
Great. That's great. Um, so what about the books? Tell us about the books.
So I've written two books, The Learn It All Leader, Mindset, Tools, and Traits, and then another one called Good Decisions Equal Success. The Learn It All Leader is really kind of like my story around playing for three Hall of Fame coaches and what I learned from my father as well, who's a super successful businessman. And it really talks about the differences between being a know-it-all, having all the answers, and a learn-it-all, somebody who's humble, leads with integrity, has the courage to make bold decisions. What you brought up, Hirsch, is curiosity, which is super important. And
Yeah.
also, is willing to take accountability if things don't go well. So it kind of compares and contrasts the two, and then gives some practical advice on what leaders or people who inspire to be leaders can do. And what I like to say, last thing I'll say about it is like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I just think that there's great leaders aren't born or made; they're constantly in the making.
Yeah, I like that. What is the toughest lesson that you would say you've ever learned?
I think the toughest lesson I ever learned in the business world was, and this was dating back to the, around 2000. Learn was doing well. I wanted to scale and expand. My dad and the board was like, I don't think it's a good idea. Let's just take it a little bit slower. I pushed for it. We overexpanded. And quite frankly, if I didn't have the financing, of my family probably would have went out of business. So that was a tough, tough lesson. And what I learned there was you need to listen to other perspectives and you need to also look at like a worst case scenario. In my book, I call it purposeful awfulizing. Instead of having rosy glasses all the time, think about something in a year from now. Okay, if we make this decision and the worst case scenario happens, can we survive it? And if you can't survive it, then maybe you need to go back to the drawing board. So that was really one of the biggest, most humbling experiences I've ever been through.
Yeah, that would be and I think when I talk to people that are entrepreneurial, business owners, I talked to someone. Phil Masiello is an ad guy, kind of like me, a brand guy, marketing guy, and he's going to be on this week's episode, on this week's Yes Brand podcast, and he was. I read through his string of successes, and then I was like, so was it easy? And he just let out the biggest laugh. And he's like, that's the last thing I would say that it was easy. Was it thrilling? Was it educational? Was it worthwhile? Yeah. But was it easy? No. And went into the first thing that happened to him, I think was also in his 20s. Uh, that was, just due to inexperience. Things that we gain experience. You've been now doing, leading Learnit for more than 20 years. Um, do you learn a lot from the podcast? Tell me, so let's talk about the Learnit podcast.
I do learn a lot from the podcast. I'm kind of curious to see what you think about it as well, if you learn a lot. I was just having a conversation with our fractional CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, earlier today about a call that I joined for a new customer. And I said to him, I said, being a host of a podcast has made me a much better listener and become more concise with my answers. So that's one thing I've learned. I've learned to be a better listener and present my answers better. But also, I mean, sitting down with some phenomenal leaders, I've had people like Stephen Covey, Doug Conant, Keith Ferrazzi, and just getting an hour of time with them, it's almost like a free coaching session. So
Yeah,
I love the podcasting world. What about you?
I feel similarly. I started Truth Tastes Funny because I felt really isolated. It was the end of COVID, but I was emerging from COVID with with a whole new like business model in the offing. Like everything just changed. The work from home thing. We had moved to a different town a couple of years prior, so it was like all my contacts that I had was used to seeing every month, I hadn't seen for 2 years, and it just was a very isolated existence. And I got into podcasting because I thought, well, this is a way to meet, new and interesting people who have likewise survived the pandemic. And what are the tips they can share? And how do we keep a sense of humor about it? And from there, everything changed. So the people I was meeting, both my fellow podcasters in the network that I was in, people that I started going to Podfest. I recently did this podcasters cruise, like I told you, which you might like, which you might,
You might see me there.
yeah. So, what it was this whole like world of people that had different jobs, different experiences, lived in different countries, where I had an international business with my business partner in the brand world, but there's a difference between meeting new people almost every week that don't necessarily need anything from you. They don't want to hire you. They don't need they don't need your business acumen. They just want to talk. They just want to talk and share, and you just want to hear and learn. And so I love it. And then the Yes Brand one became more of a business niche thing, talking to people about how they're getting their word out about their brands. What are they doing? What sucks? What works? What does all of that. That it I probably have met maybe 300 people in real life that I've gotten to know that came from just that decision to start podcasting.
Well, my two things I'd say about that, for your listener base out there is number one, I've exponentially expanded my network with great people. I had lunch on Sunday with a guy who has his own podcast and is a big time sales leader. So him and I are friends now. So that's one thing. It's great for that. Number two, it's fantastic for your brand. So if you're somebody out there and you want to build your own brand, whether you work for an organization or not, I mean, we all need to build our brand. Having a podcast is so important. And number three, I'm always out there talking to business leaders and CEOs I know, telling them they have to have a podcast because exactly like what you just said, Hirsch, it gives them an opportunity to share information about their industry, what's going on, insights from the CEO in the organization, and provides their sales team content to get out in front. So if you're gonna trying to meet with a prospect and you're having a hard time getting in touch with them, maybe send them a clip from your podcast and sharing here are some challenges or business goals you may be looking at and something that I've talked about on a recent episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because the fact is, we don't always think about this while we're recording the episodes, but we're creating a snapshot of ourselves. On most of my interviews, I don't talk that much. I probably in this one I talked a little more because you asked me a couple of questions, but the fact is, we're creating a little snapshot of our moment in time. And if people want to get to know us better before doing business with us, yeah, there's 200 something episodes of my podcasts out there. They could just listen to how we talk to people. How do we
Absolutely.
relate to people? Are we curious? Are we, crazy? Are we funny? Are we deluded? All of which is probably true.
And exactly. And also if you're smart about it, you can leverage that content and repurpose it in other ways to get it out there, whether for marketing purposes or in my case at Learn It. I take the Learn It All podcast, and if I have a conversation around difficult conversations or being coachable, I take clips for that and then share it back out with our learner community. So they go take classes and they could follow up and they could hear a great leader speak on behalf of, how to become more coachable or how to become a better coach.
That's fantastic. Let's touch on the future, on what you have in your sights for Learn It in the next, let's say, 5 years.
I think if you ask anybody in the learning and development world, and what Learn It does is like you mentioned, we're a live learning platform that really partners with B2B companies and help them develop better leaders or a learning culture. But what everybody's talking about, of course, is how AI will impact leadership and learning and development. I'm a huge fan of AI, both internally for our team. I think it helps level the playing field. Learnit's got about 40, 50 employees, but now we can compete with these larger organizations when it comes to cranking out content or marketing. And for our customers. So we're starting to build out AI habit coaches and other tools that can help support the live learning that we do. I don't think live learning is ever going to go away. I think you're going to need a live human being delivering either a Zoom class or in person. But now you can leave a class at some point. You can leave a class and say you forgot something about what you took in the Learn It feedback class. Maybe you go to the Learn It bot and say, "Hey, what's that model? And can you help me with this situation? I'm walking into this call." And we can help prompt them on being more successful with that. So really, our intention is to build out content around on AI that can help support our learners moving forward in the future.
I think if we can utilize AI in that customizable way, in that really personalized way for what we need it to do for us, but it somehow frees us up to spend more time with other human beings. That would be an amazing thing. We think about the expeditiousness of AI, and it'll save us all this time, but what are we going to do with the time? You know, and I think if it allowed us to deepen our relationships, I thought of this line of thinking when you said that. I think we're always going to need a live instructor or a live teacher. And it occurred to me, well, I think we want that. I think we want to be engaged with. I remember I had friends going to Harvard when I was in college and visiting them at Harvard. And that was the first time I ever heard about, and this was again like in the early 90s, but it was like the first time I ever heard about someone putting a recorder in class and not going to class,
Right.
or and that one of my friends told me, well, the teacher just records it, the professor just records it, and they just play the thing. And I was like, that's like a jip. What is that? What is that about? And but if you think about it, the human interaction was what really ignited everything. So I think when it comes to learning, I don't know a better way to learn than from a person that
And
you can,
everybody, Hirsch, everybody learns differently.
Yeah.
Some people like on demand, some people like reading books, and some people like coaching or workshops. Same thing with, in person work versus virtual. I'm a big fan of learning from humans, and I think that there's value in all of it. But yeah, I don't think it's ever going to go away. And I think that the skills that are going to be necessary for the future, and this is beyond learning now, are the human skills. The creativity, communication, empathy. Those are problem solving, human problem solving. Those are all skills that are going to interrelate well, I believe, with the all the software and AI that's being developed.
Yeah. Um, to kind of take us out of this interview, I think it would be great coming from you if you could leave our audience with some advice for people whose plans change, people whose careers require a pivot or a complete reset. What kind of advice would you give people in that position?
You're not alone, for one. It happens to a lot of people, whether it's in sports, or I was talking to a guy who worked at Google for 10 years and got let go, and now he's got to go in a completely different direction. And what I would really think about the skills and the experiences that you've learned and how they can help you moving forward, because whatever you did before isn't a waste. You have all these experiences and skills that you can put forth in your new career. And what you need to do with that is don't go at it alone. Figure out who you have in your network, talk to them, and help make these decisions and help you find your next path and direction. So I know sometimes it's a tough place if you've gotten let go or your sports career ended, but you're not the first one who's dealt with it, and you will get through it, and will be find a way to be successful in the future.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Let the audience know where to find you.
So I would say the best place to find me is LinkedIn, Damon Lembi on LinkedIn. And yeah, like you mentioned, I'm a big fan. I love podcasting. So the Learn It All podcast, check that out, or go see what we have online at learnit.com.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.